Hey, Greg.
Hey, Dan.
So, I heard through the grapevine that you have a PS4.
Was that grapevine me? Did I tell you that? What, am I the grapevine?
Yes.
Yeah, I do have a PS4.
Why don't you tell me about it?
To be honest with you, there's not that much to tell, and I think that's the biggest issue here.
Well, then that's really great that you just 30 seconds ago picked this as our intro topic.
No, you're missing the point.
No, I have the point completely. I understand your point. It's just as a point of discussion, it's poor. All right, so what's the issue with the PS4?
There's nothing to do on it.
Should have got an Xbox One.
Well, you have an Xbox One. What do you do on it?
I mainly play Destiny.
Well, here's
it's my Xbox Destiny.
Here's the thing. I would be playing Destiny, but I promised you I wouldn't. So I have nothing to play on my PS4. The only thing that I've bought and played on my PS4 that I've actually liked was Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes. I feel like that's a truly next-gen game. Everything else is just a slightly prettier version. And as far as PS4 goes, there's nothing that's really jumped out to me like, oh, you got to get this on the PS4. This is a PS4 game. I have Assassin's Creed Black Flag, still haven't played it. Because I hated Assassin's Creed 3 so much. Bought the new Madden. Plays a lot like the old Madden.
Which probably plays a lot like the old Madden.
Probably.
Which probably plays a lot like the old Madden.
They've only had 25 years to nail it down, so... I don't know.
There's a new Madden every year, right?
Yeah.
We'll just leave that one alone. We don't need to go into that.
I got very excited this year. I've never owned a day one system. I'm always like a year or two behind the curve. And this was the first time that a new system... Keep in mind, the last time systems came out, it was 2005, whatever. I was in college. Like, I still didn't have $300, $400, $500, $600 in the, case of the PS3 to buy a new system. This was the first time where I was at least mildly financially able to, put $100 down, like $100 I didn't desperately need at the moment, to reserve a system and actually get one when it came out. So I was really, really amped. But what I'm sort of finding out is that I feel like it's not really worth it.
It's not worth it to get it day one, or it's not worth it yet. Oh, I need you to...
The bigger point I'm making right now is that I think I don't want to be the type of person who's an early adopter. I'm saying this with my new iPhone coming in the mail tomorrow. But as a whole, I think next time systems come out in 2082, whenever it's actually going to happen, I think I'm going to wait a little while unless there's some sort of guaranteed, like, this game is going to be the game. Like, the Xbox One needed to drop with Destiny.
Yeah. I feel like both of these had kind of a real soft launch. I mean, I'm more familiar with the Xbox offerings than the PlayStation ones, and most big games these days are on both. But, like, if whatever the Shadow of the Colossus people are working on,
At this point, they're just like a prank factory.
No,
they don't actually have a game. They're just like, let's see how we can get them this time.
But seriously, just imagine this. Imagine if the PlayStation 4 launched... Well, what's that game called? The new one that they're
The Last Guardian.
Yeah. So imagine if the PS4 launched with The Last Guardian and it had rave reviews because it was an incredible game. That would have been a good start.
Right.
Instead, they all just kind of eased into it. Like, Xbox is the same way. Like, their big thing at first was Titanfall. I played that, honestly.
And that didn't even release right away.
Yeah. And I honestly, dude, I bought my Xbox. I bought the Titanfall bundle. I played Titanfall for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have anybody to play it with.
Well, that's a big part of it, too.
I don't have a big pool of gamers to, like, people I actually know who also game, who I will play games with. I mean, yeah, I could just start friending random people on, when I run across them, but I'm not going to do that. So I don't have, like, a pool of people to play with, and, like, you don't have it. You're my main person that I play games with. If you had it, we probably would have played it, and it would have been fine. We would have played it for a little while until something else came out and moved on. But there was no like killer game. You know, it didn't like launch with like Halo 5 or something like that, which it should have.
And part of the issue is that most major games at this point are continuously getting pushed back.
Mm-hmm.
The PS4 and the Xbox One were both supposed to launch with Watch Dogs. Now, granted, Watch Dogs turned out to be a good but not great game, but everybody expected that to be like the game that was people were going to buy these systems for. But Watch Dogs wasn't ready, so it didn't come out until a couple months later, and everybody already had these systems with crap games rotting on them. I bought my PS4 with the new Killzone. I think it was Killzone, Shadowfall, Shadows Fall, Shadow Dark. I don't know, whatever, Shadow something.
Dark of the Moon.
Dark of the Shadows Moons. Transformers 6.
Dark of the Allspark.
So
the Allspark's back and it's angry.
Now, while that game was pretty, I turned on my PS4 and I was like, wow, this is some next-gen stuff right here. This is great.
I'm impressed by my Xbox.
No, it all looks good. I just don't want to play any of these games. Like, I need something original or exciting that feels genuinely next-gen.
Destiny.
Does it?
It does.
I don't know if you can boil it down quickly. But what about it feels next-gen to you?
It's like responsive and quick and crisp and like it's got like features that I don't know if you couldn't necessarily have them on the 360. And by that I mean like the biggest thing is it's not like an MMO, but it's sort of like a MMO light in that like there'll be like 20 people or whatever on a server all wandering around the same map, doing different things, being on different agendas. But you might run into people, and like you're running into real people. Like there's the enemies, but there's no CPU people on your side. Like if there's somebody there, it's a real person, and that's really cool. And like there was a really good example. Like this is something that I've never encountered in a game before on a console. There were people that were doing a raid in Destiny, which is like an end game thing. It's really difficult. It's like you get 6 people together and you go for it, and so all these people, they load on the map together, but there's also other people that aren't involved in what they're doing who also loaded on the map. Some guy stole essentially a speeder bike that has guns on it, was not part of the raid, but came across the group of guys who were preparing to do the raid. They were at the beginning of it, and he knew it. And he stayed with them and essentially became a 7th person, helped them, and because he had that speeder bike with the guns, he totally blew all these people out of the water, which would have been so much more difficult for the 6 people that were trying to start the raid. That was a really cool experience. He recorded it, put it on YouTube. It was like really fun to watch. So that sense of like community, it's different than I've ever had in another game.
Might show my ignorance. Is Destiny out for the older systems, the 360 and the PS3?
Yeah.
It is, okay.
It's on like everything.
Handhelds. It's on calculators.
It's on the Texas Instruments.
This is your Destiny. You have one.
I don't know. That might not necessarily be a quote-unquote next-gen feature, but it's a fun experience that I haven't had on a 360 before. I mean, I just haven't done multiplayer like that. Destiny has a lot of flaws. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a million people on the internet with a million opinions about Destiny. It's a really popular game, and not everybody agrees that it is quite what it could have been or should have been. But I have a lot of fun playing it. It's fun.
I guess the other issue outside of even just the lack of compelling games, with my PS4, the interface doesn't seem terribly groundbreaking to me. And from the little bit I know of the Xbox One seems significantly more interesting from an interface perspective.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to judge something. Like when you have trouble with an interface, you have to ask yourself, am I being stupid, or was the designer being stupid, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, with the PS4, the interface is intuitive. However, it is not significantly more. It is not improved over the PS3 one. They're different, but they function similarly, and nothing about the PS4 one says like this is groundbreakingly new. This is a slightly updated version of what you all know already.
Well, like some of the things that I really dig about the Xbox One are so when you press the Xbox button on the top of your controller, it backs you out of the game to your main Xbox screen. So if you need to jump into something else real quick, like talk to your friend, like go to like the Friends app or look up a message that somebody sent you or whatever, like you can jump out of your game, do whatever you need to do on your Xbox like OS, and then easily jump back into the game. So like it's that ability to like multitask is really interesting. Another feature that I really like, and I still think the Kinect is stupid. I think it's unnecessary as like a gaming add-on. I think it's dumb, but it allows for some of the voice commands. Like when I'm done with my Xbox, I can say Xbox, and the little thing dings, and I say turn off. That's cool.
That's real cool. PlayStation doesn't have anything like that.
When somebody sends me a message, like I get a prompt about what to say to have the message appear. Like I don't have to do anything. I can just say Xbox read message or whatever it is, and then it'll read it. Or it'll bring up it'll bring it up on the screen. Things like that, that allow the experience to be a little more seamless and a little less cumbersome. I really appreciate. Sometimes navigating like the main screens, it's like there's a lot of ads being thrown at you because they want, it's the whole thing's a platform for showing you ads. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But it looks nice. It looks beautiful. Like I look at this, I guess I'm just looking at you just turn it on at the main screen. Everything just looks so crisp and so nice, and I like it.
Yeah, I don't get that from the PS4 at all. It just looks like PS3 Plus.
Like they have and one of the other things that like I really like, and it's dumb. Like you could have this on any system. It doesn't need to be on the Xbox, but you pick a gamer icon, I guess, which is not your avatar. It's just like a little picture that goes with your name, and they have a huge selection, and they're all really fun little graphic images. Like they had a really cool crew of graphic designers or whoever working on these images, artists, whatever. They're just really fun pictures, and it's like they're high quality and crisp, and they look nice. That's just that's fun too. Like mine is it's like this really gaudy looking like 1980s style artwork of like hamburgers and French fries and hot dogs like flying around. I love it.
The other thing that, and this is me getting super nitpicky, that something that annoyed me about the PS4. I don't watch a lot of TV. Like I don't turn on CBS and watch Two Broke Girls because I'm not an idiot. But if I'm going to watch something live or choose to watch something, I tend to watch Twitch channels. They broadcast League of Legends, which is my favorite thing at the moment. They also broadcast live Magic tournaments. They do fighting tournaments, which is something I really love. So I tend to watch those things whenever I just have free time to watch something. When I was deciding whether to buy a PS4 or an Xbox, a very big deal to me was being able to watch Twitch. And the PlayStation very explicitly said, we have Twitch coming to the PS4, guys. Jump on board. It's going to be great. You can stream stuff right from you. All you have to do is hit that share button. Boom, you're twitching all over the place. The issue, and I mean, I don't know if I should have done more research or what, but it is not a full functioning Twitch interface on the PS4. All you can do is watch other people streaming their PS4 through Twitch. So if I want to watch the Star City Games, Magic coverage,
so you can't watch all the feeds. You can only watch PS4.
Exactly.
Are you sure?
Maybe I'm being dumb. Maybe they've changed it. I haven't checked recently because now the Xbox 360 has a great interface for it. I just used that. Maybe they've changed it. I don't know, but that doesn't work for me. I want to be able to watch the League of Legends esports.
Yeah.
I quite honestly, if I had known that was how Twitch was going to work on the PS4, I probably would not have bought one.
I'm not a huge Twitch person. I watched when the Destiny beta launched. I had the Xbox, so I didn't have access to it yet. So that was my introduction to Twitch. Essentially, was watching other people playing Destiny before I could. And I'm realizing now I am such a Destiny fanboy. It's starting to sound ridiculous.
It's cute.
It's ridiculous. But I have used it a little bit on my Xbox One and have had no issues. I mean, it works well. It seems like a fully functioning video app, like anything else on there.
Yeah, as it should be.
I don't know if you can share. I don't know if that's a feature.
I don't think it is. That was like a big sticking point for PS4. It was like, you can do this. It's a share button. There's not a start and select anymore. It's like share and options.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything about that. Although, quite frankly, nobody is going to watch me play Destiny. That would be boring.
Yeah, that'd be stupid.
You'd watch me standing in front of a cave where enemies come out of it continuously while I farm for money. Where I farm for glimmer and engrams.
Oh my god. We should start the episode.
We probably should.
Just, I mean, quickly, what's your takeaway from your Xbox One experience so far?
When I first got it, playing Titanfall, and then I realized like I'm not huge into Titanfall. I thought I was going to be, and I wasn't. I felt not burned, but like I was like, I didn't really need to get this when I did. It was like I felt like I probably could have just waited longer, waited for Destiny or waited for something, and like gotten it then, and it wouldn't have been a big deal. I thought I was getting like a deal, getting that Titanfall bundle, and I saved some extra money too through Amazon. And now that I have it, and I've been playing that a lot lately, I like it. The controller feels nice. Like they added this like little grippy thing around the edge of the joysticks. That feels really good, like a textured grippiness. One thing I really, really love about it is, I love that they have this. I think it's lame that you have to pay extra as a kit, but they have like this audio adapter that fits into the controller, and then you can plug any headset into that and use that as your headphones. That's a really nice feature. I think that should have been built in. You shouldn't have to pay extra for that, but that's a cool feature. Like as a hardware thing, I think that's nice.
My PS4 experience, I would say that I just wish I had waited. I'm a real stickler for playing certain games on certain systems. Like I always buy every Metal Gear for a PlayStation. I always buy every Final Fantasy for a PlayStation.
Yeah, I would do that too. That seems like logical.
Like even though you can get them on either system and stuff now, to me those are PlayStation games. So I want to have the PlayStation there. And when they announced Final Fantasy, it was then 13 Versus and Metal Gear and stuff. It was like I'm going to want this PlayStation because I'm going to want to play those games when they come out. But of course, everything's been pushed back a million times, and I have this $400 piece of plastic rotting in my basement. I probably should have just waited until Metal Gear came out and then bought the PlayStation.
That's not exclusive to PlayStation though, right?
No.
So here's a question for you.
Sure.
And then we can move on. Do you regret if you could change now and get the Xbox One instead of the PS4, would you?
Yeah, probably. And part of that is perhaps because I was just so underwhelmed when the PlayStation 4 first came out that I haven't really given it a huge shot since then. They could have, all these things I could be complaining about, they could have fixed. But I haven't turned my PlayStation on since Ground Zeroes came out, so I wouldn't know.
I mean, I feel very similar to you in that sense, but like I've sort of flip-flopped because when I got it, I had Titanfall and then wasn't playing it, and then I had nobody to play my games with, and so I wasn't playing my Xbox One. I'm like, I spent hundreds of dollars on this thing, and I'm not using it for anything. Like, I don't even need it for Netflix because I have a Roku. So it was like, why did I was like, I would see it in the living room, and I would kind of ask myself sometimes, why did I spend my money on this? I could have waited.
Right.
Or just, it was unnecessary for me to rush into getting it.
I just wanted to be that guy who had a PS4. I wanted to be in on it on the first one. Everybody was so excited and rushing around for Christmas, like, wait, can I get a PS4? Do you have any PS4s? Do you have any PS4s? I just wanted to know that, I want to feel good that I already had one at home, just chilling out.
Actually, I got to say, two more quick things
Yeah.
that I really like about the Xbox. So I don't actually use my Kinect, and I think it's ugly, so I hid it behind my television, but it, looks out through where the Xbox is, and it was so you can hold up if you have a code you need to enter. It's a pain in the ass to do it the old way, letter by letter. But it's got a QR code now, and you can just hold it in front of your Kinect. So I'm sitting there one day, and I was like, "Oh, damn it, my Kinect's not hooked up." Then I realized, "Oh yeah, it is. It's just tucked in the back." And it was on the screen. They show you what the Kinect sees when it does that, so you can line up your QR code properly. I'm like, "Why is it looking at my leg? What is this? What's going on?" And I realized it's looking through past the Xbox. So I just hold the QR code up over near the Xbox on the side of it, and it totally saw it. And I was like, "Nice! I don't even need this stupid thing out. I can just hide it back there, and it works." So the fact that it can scan the QR codes is really cool, and I mean it's really basic, but that's a really thoughtful feature. I like that. And the other feature, I now don't remember what it was. I forgot a second thing, and I don't remember.
Anyway, we got to move on.
Yep.
We actually have a game to talk about. I specifically had picked this so that we could have a short intro.
That never happens.
That never happens.
We're too opinionated and chatty.
I guess we're chatty Cathy.
All right.
We'll move on.
Do you want to announce our game for today?
No, we haven't even heard the theme song yet, bro.
All right. Brah.
Brah. Podcast theme music go, brah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Player 2 Press Start. I am killagreg. You can find me at killagreg17 on the Twitter.
I'm Dan. You can find me at the Polygon1.
Or you can find us collaboratively at Player 2, PLAYRTWO.
You can also find us at player2pressstart.com.
There you go. We got our first email this week.
Yep.
We haven't had time to process it yet, so we'll hold it for next week.
Update on that. I'm Dan at player2pressstart.com. Greg is killagreg at player2pressstart.com.
Yeah, it turns out I wasn't getting emails forwarded to me.
It turns out I'm a moron and put the wrong email address in our post. So don't worry, Andy. I forwarded your email on.
Thank you. I'm in the know now.
I apologize for being a moron.
This week, we are talking about probably the best game we've ever played. For the podcast, anyway.
Yeah.
We're talking about Portal 2.
We are.
I'm excited to talk about this game. Although not for totally the right reasons, I will openly admit. I just happen to love these games. The co-op is a completely separate thing, but the single player, perfection.
Yeah. They nail it. I felt that the story, the single-player campaign mode, whatever you want to call it, for Portal 2, I felt like it was a little long. Just a little bit. It kind of dragged for me for a little while. But it was still funny.
I can understand the perspective. I don't totally agree with you. I don't think it was too long. But it was longer than it needed to be. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's the definition of too long?
No, there's a difference. I'm glad everything that was in the game was in the game. But if it were 10 hours instead of 12 or 15 hours, I wouldn't have been devastated. But like all that extra stuff towards the end with the gels and Cave Johnson and stuff, if they had cut any of that out, I think it would have been a detriment to the game. But if they had presented me a 10-hour game, I would have still been content with that.
No, it's not. It's not like I feel like it wasn't. I mean, I like the sort of like adventure through time, through the kind of like history of Aperture Science, but they could have tightened up those levels a little bit just to shorten them up a little.
I'm happy. I'm happy with the game. I think it's perfect. So,
well, I'm never happy, and we'll always find something to complain about.
So the original Portal came out in 2007. There's no way that's possible.
We didn't look that one up.
I can't believe I didn't look it up. Yeah, I should have.
You looked up Portal.
2007. I was right.
All right, good job.
So the original Portal came out in 2007. It was part of what was known as the Orange Box, which might have been the greatest value in video game history. I'm pretty sure it was $30 when it came out and had 5 games in it, one of which was Portal, which I would pay $1 million for. So that was just a great deal. I remember our old podcast. I remember talking about what a great value that was when it came out, and that was like 10 years ago.
Can you find that episode? That'd be great to like tack that on.
Maybe. I remember we were still recording in the radio station.
That'd be great if we could go back to that radio station now and like rent time on their equipment after hours.
They're in dire straits. I'm sure it would not be an issue. Be like, how much money?
$350?
Tens of dollars? Yes, please.
You'll pay us in the double digits?
So I personally think that the first Portal is the pinnacle of gaming. I use it as an example of a game doing something good in pretty much every category that I judge video gaming on. The only minor gripe I have with it is perhaps a graphical one, but Dan and I were talking about it earlier. Graphics are probably the least important thing when it comes to whether a game is good or not.
Like, it's like icing on the cake.
Right.
Like, the cake is still good even if it doesn't say happy birthday on it.
Right, or if, like, you spelled my name wrong.
Yeah.
It was like, this is the best cake I've ever had, but you spelled my name G-R-G.
Yeah, or Greg.
Greg.
Happy birthday, Greg.
So, there's a video out there done by Ego Raptor. Are you familiar with him?
Mm-mm.
He's one of the Game Grump guys. Do you know familiar with that?
I remember hearing something about Game Grumps recently.
Ego Raptor is one of those guys where, very similar to the Red Letter Media Star Wars reviews,
Okay.
where like the points they make are so poignant and perfect, but they present it in a way that sometimes makes it hard to recommend. Ego Raptor is one of those guys where like he has video game theory down to a T. He knows what he's talking about, but he presents it in such an annoying way that it's
What's so annoying about it?
that's hard to recommend.
Not to get us off tangent or off topic.
He gets really squelchy, and it's a lot of yelling.
Ugh.
Like, I don't know why there's so much yelling.
Okay.
Anyway, he does a lot of internet videos. He's pretty famous. He's YouTube famous, which is
Not famous.
not famous at all. But he did a video comparing the original Mega Man to Mega Man X, and in the same thing, he was sort of comparing how Mega Man X does such a great job of explaining how to play a game without somebody popping up, without like a tutorial or, a bubble coming up being like, hey, Mega Man, you got to jump really high over here. You're going to fall.
Yeah.
It's like the game teaches you the mechanics of the game in-game, and you get to learn it yourself. Portal, the original Portal does that better than any game in the history of the world. We might have talked about this previously on the podcast, but when Chell wakes up in that little room and so much information is presented to you there, it explains the entire game in the first 30 seconds. So from a video game perspective, from a theory perspective, the first 30 seconds of Portal, in my opinion, are the greatest 30 seconds of video game history. And then the game starts. That's before you even do anything.
Yeah.
The game is short. The game is funny. It tells a thorough story, but through minimal... it doesn't take you out of the game at any point to tell you the story.
It doesn't intervene to inject story.
Exactly.
It's just part of the game.
It's just part of it. It seamlessly interjects the story. And, we've talked about this a lot with Left 4 Dead, which is another Valve game. The story is subtle and told to you on your own terms. If you want to just blast through Portal, be like, I love these puzzles, shooting portals all over the place, get it done in 2.5 hours, and you'd be perfectly content with that experience, then that's great. But, if you want to take your time, explore the chambers, find a few secrets, find a few funny things here and there, stuff like that, you can do it all on your own terms. The game is perfectly content just letting you blast through some puzzles and be happy. But if you want to experience a little bit more, it lets you. And also, the first Portal is really short, and I think there's a lot to be said for short games. People are so worried about getting value out of their money that a lot of times games aren't willing to just let them be themselves.
Like Dead Space 3.
Like Dead Space 3. It's like, we got to pad this. Make them run through again on the other way. What game was it? I want to say Devil May Cry 4. You pretty much play the game twice, but it's the same game. You just run through one direction, then you run through the other direction. That's awful gameplay.
And to some degree, it's kind of like New Game Plus, because you're playing the same game again.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm fine with New Game Plus, but rarely, very rarely, is New Game Plus a bonus feature to me. Fez is the only time New Game Plus was a positive for me.
Yeah.
Because you can't beat the game without the thing you get from New Game Plus.
Yeah. But like I do it with Borderlands because we're gonna keep playing it and do it. But I don't like it. I don't like repeating games. That's a nitpick for me. I don't like doing the same thing twice.
Agreed.
Unless it's like I want to play the game again, which rarely ever happens. Like games that I'm in love with, like Knights of the Old Republic is like one of the only ones I've played multiple times through. But that's about it.
So
Halo.
We're not talking about the original Portal, but I cannot pass up an opportunity to just speak to how wonderful that game is.
Yeah.
So Portal 2 came out in 2011.
Yep.
We played it on the Xbox 360.
It also came out for Windows, OS X, Linux, and the PS3. As we mentioned, developed by Valve. And it is a first-person puzzle platformer. Which
is a weird thing.
It's a weird genre. That's not popular.
It's very hard to do platforming in first person because you never are really able to see what you're actually trying to put on a platform.
You don't have the same depth perception that you would have in real life.
Right. But I think Portal 1, there was a little bit of a struggle with that. Like, I had trouble putting myself on the platform sometimes when you were going really fast and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't really have that much issue with Portal 2.
No, it's fine. There's usually enough, leeway in what you're doing. Like, they're never putting you in situations that are so, razor thin where that matters.
So, we'll just briefly touch on the single-player campaign. I'm a huge fan of the single-player campaign.
Yeah, I love it. It's bigger and funnier in the second one.
And what I think it does so well is Dan and I talk about world building sometimes. I think the world that is built in Portal 1 or Portal 2 is spectacular. Maybe the definition of world building. When you wind up about a third of the way through the game, you wind up in the old Aperture Science Labs.
And they take you through decade by decade.
You just feel like this was a working laboratory and you're exploring a world that was abandoned.
And it's a little cliched in how they represent each. They take the obvious colors that you would assume, with the 1970s, brown and yellow and green and orange and stuff. The obvious colors, that you or the aesthetic that comes to mind for the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. They throw that into each lab when you get to that point, and it's fine. It serves its purpose, but you feel like it felt old.
Yeah,
it felt like you were this was the lab at that time,
and it's just fun to explore. And once again, it's tremendous storytelling through experience rather than them just telling you what happened.
Exposition.
Exactly. There's no cutscene in Portal 2, and it's awesome. Is there a cutscene?
Maybe at the end.
Maybe at the very end.
They're very infrequent, if at all.
So you're inferring the story through your own interactions with the world, and I love that.
Yeah. And they have this running commentary over the loudspeakers, whether it's Gladys or Wheatley or Cave Johnson, who was he just record himself yammering on all the time? What exactly?
I believe so.
Nixon recording himself in the Oval Office. And so he's just got this this ridiculous running commentary of kind of like a nutcase scientist, running the lab over the loudspeakers as you're playing the levels, and it's just hilarious.
It's great. I don't think I have any complaints about the single player.
My only potential complaint is that I thought it was a little long, and it dragged just a little bit for me. But
maybe.
But it's such an incredible game. They do everything else so well. I don't even dock them points for it, really.
I'll save this point towards the end. So with Portal 2 also was introduced cooperative play, which is why we're actually here.
Yep.
As I could just talk about single player the entire time, but we'll get
to our podcast. Player 2, press start.
We'll get to the point. What do you think about the cooperative play?
I think we should set it up a little bit. Describe the
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that?
So it consists basically of you're in test chambers, similar to the single player game, but the co-op is you play two robots, Peabody and Atlas, who essentially have the same functionality as Chell from the single player. You have a portal gun. So it's just you're in test rooms, and there is sort of a storyline, a subtle storyline that is worked into the cooperative.
Yeah, the story behind it is that in the single player, Gladys becomes a potato,
which is great. They plug her like core into a potato for power, and you like lug her around for half the game. It's great.
Eventually, she becomes normal Gladys again, and she sets back to doing science.
Yep.
But she has found these two robots who
Atlas and Peabody,
who are, they can die a million times and just do science forever because they're robots.
But as opposed to humans who can only die once.
Right. But eventually, this is the plot of the cooperative. Gladys finds out that the dying aspect is what makes testing with humans actually fun. So she is sort of guiding Atlas and Peabody / tricking them through these test chambers to eventually find a vault which has humans in them so she can test with humans again.
So gameplay-wise, I mean, it's identical to the single player, but your test chambers are a little bit more complicated because you've got the dynamic of essentially 4 portals instead of just 2. So you need to work together with your partner to figure out how to problem solve and make your way through the levels. But, the general mechanics are the same.
Yeah, and just a testament to the designers of this game, little things like this are what separates good games from great games. So the portals for one person are light blue and blue. The portals for the other person are like a dark red and orange.
Yep.
That makes gameplay so much easier.
Yeah.
Just so you can always tell what of the 4 portals is where.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lesser designer wouldn't even think about something like that, and they would just give everybody the same portal gun from the single player, so everybody would just have blue and light blue. So little decisions like that go a long way, especially in a game that can get complicated like this. I can always tell exactly which one of Dan's portals are where, and he can always tell where mine are just from the color choices.
Agreed. That's a solid point.
I don't know where to go from there.
Well, so that's the setup for the co-op. What I thought of it, I thought it was a lot of fun. I wished that there had been a little more story, and we'll get into that as we go through our points here. But I think it's fun. I think it's original. I think it builds on the single player experience. The sort of the player dynamics that you get are significantly different because, like as we commented, we have different play styles. You are more sort of for Portal specifically, you'll just kind of run in and go nuts and start shooting portals around and kind of like experiment very quickly. And I'm much more inclined to sort of casually walk into a level, look around, see what kind of features I have, and kind of like slowly work my way through it. And I'm not in a rush. And so we're different in that aspect. And sometimes that can cause things like if one of us, I mean, there's only one right answer for these puzzles. So as soon as one person figures it out, it's like there's no point in waiting for the other one to do it. Just one person is then just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for the other person to get on board.
Right. The way I figure out puzzles in Portal is I like to know what everything in the room does, and then I'll put the pieces together. So like I'll run through, I'll push every button to see what happens. I'll start flinging portals everywhere to see what sticks. It's like, can I put a portal there? Can I put a portal there? Can I put a portal there? And I'll just throw portals everywhere. And then once I get like an accurate lay of the land, that's when I start putting the pieces together. It's like, all right, well, I know I can I'm going to have to put a portal there. I'm going to have to put a portal there. How do these pieces fit together? And I think you just go in and analyze the room before you start doing stuff.
Kind of. That's more how with Portal 1 and then the Portal 2 single player. That's how I generally approached every level. I guess I was careful but deliberate. But it was, I was the only one there. I could do it on my own time. There was no rush, and it didn't matter. It's not timed. Nothing. I could do it whatever I wanted when I wanted to do it. But this is different because we're working together. We're trying to solve these together, and I also don't want to hold you up. And so sometimes I'm just sort of like going along for the ride because you're figuring it out more quickly than I am. Or not always. Sometimes I get them first. It happens. But I think in general I have a little bit more of a lackadaisical approach to the levels,
which is fine. Yeah,
it's fine. It's just a byproduct of playing this game's co-op. But I think it's really fun. I really enjoy it. They added that. We think they added. We should have checked that. But I definitely do not remember that being there before.
Me neither.
They so they have this kind of the co-op. I guess we could call it story mode. And then they added this new challenge mode. I swear to God, I don't remember that.
I don't remember it either. It's like a time trials type thing.
Yeah.
The objective isn't so much get through the levels or whatever. It's to get through them as fast as possible.
Yeah. So that was sort of we played that recently to sort of refresh on the game, and neither of us recalled that mode being in the game, so that's what we played. That was fun. It was nice that they had that extra bit.
I appreciate them adding extra content for nothing other than player value.
I sometimes wish that there was a randomizer, every time you loaded up a level, it was random. I'm sure they could set up some sort of algorithm to do it.
I don't know if they could or not. I feel like it's too complicated of a system, and that's something are we ready to talk about where are we?
Well, we're technically we're on plot still.
Okay.
Just my real quick point is we have gone back and played the co-op story mode a few times, but I feel like once you get through it the first time, some of the puzzles, you remember things about the puzzles, and so it's that first playthrough is the best. And then anytime you go back, unless you've had a really, really long break in playing it, it's I've already done this.
Yeah, there is virtually no instant replayability.
Yeah, it's not a huge problem. There's enough levels where that's not a huge problem, but it's a minor issue. Our next topic is graphics.
So I brought this up with Left 4 Dead because Left 4 Dead uses the same engine as all the Portals. The Source engine does not and has never done anything for me. I always feel like it looks sort of outdated. And I don't totally know what it is, but the vibe I get is that the Source engine does not do curves very well.
It doesn't do organic. That's what it doesn't do.
Yes, that's right.
Because comparing Left 4 Dead 2 to Portal 2, it's the same engine, but they look totally different. And I think Left 4 Dead 2 looks way worse, but that's because it's a more natural environment. As I mentioned off the podcast, Portal 2 you're essentially in a very tech-centric. It's like you're inside of an Apple laboratory.
Right.
Everything is smooth surfaces and clean surfaces. It's crisp and nice, and you can almost get away with it because of the atmosphere of the game and the setting you're in. But as we pointed out, the gross, nasty water that you fall in, or acid, whatever it is, it looks like garbage.
Yeah.
The water looks horrible. And most of the natural surfaces, especially the one, was it the bayou level?
Mm-hmm. The swamp one.
That one looks real dumpy in Left 4 Dead. This game it does polygons well, but it doesn't do curves and natural things and sort of more asymmetrical surfaces. It doesn't do that as well.
And perhaps that's just the lineage of the PC development, but in its own weird way, it feels like a prettier version of all those old first-person shooters like Dark Forces and Jedi Knight and stuff like that. Everything just feels and really blocky to me.
Well, ultimately it comes down to polygon count. Really.
I guess I don't totally know.
Well, I would think it does. If you have one polygon, that polygon's a square, and you want to make a circle, well, you need a lot more ultimately, if you get down to it, the circle's not a circle. It's got like a trillion surfaces.
Well, I mean, I could be completely wrong. I don't know technical aspects of things.
I don't either, but
the vibe I got was just that you're right. Inorganic is probably the best.
Polygon count is a huge thing, and that's why older games don't look as good. They don't have as many polygons.
Right.
But this game, compared to some of the other Source games, I thought it looked okay. And I think a lot of that, they kind of like skirt around the problems with it because of the setting of the game. There's like barely any characters. The things you interact with for the most part, especially in 2, are like that funky ball and the companion cube, the balls that fall down.
Yeah.
And like those look fine. They've got like text stuff on them, and they look okay. You're mostly on flat surfaces and jumping on stuff like that. So you kind of get away with it because it's very clean and sterile, and you don't have those issues. You're not outside.
Right. But I mean, the game looks fine enough. I think just aesthetically speaking, the Source engine never does much for me.
I would agree. With a better engine, the game would look even better.
Yes.
Like it looks nice and fine because of the design aesthetic of the game, but the engine isn't doing it anyhow.
Although something I will give some credit for are the animations of the game. Like Wheatley is very interesting to look at, and just from his, they don't have a lot to work with, but they do a great job of like showing emotion and all that just from essentially an eyeball.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job. And Gladys, when she comes back to life and all that, like it's very well animated.
And especially considering they're robots.
Yeah, exactly.
But they feel like robots. Funny robots that have gone nuts, but robots nonetheless.
So I have to give them some credit for that and making robots interesting.
They kind of remind me of HK-47 from Knights of the Old Republic, like in that same sense of like sarcastic sort of artificial intelligence,
which I like.
Yeah. We should also mention. So we were curious. Greg asked me what I thought when we were filling out our worksheet for the game. He was asking me what I thought of the graphics of this game, and I said, "Well, it's kind of hard to judge. Came out in 2011. I'm used to like Xbox One stuff. I've been playing a lot of Destiny." In case you hadn't known, because I didn't mention that yet. And so we looked up to see what other big games came out in 2011 that would be, of the same era. So some of the big ones were like Battlefield 3, Arkham City, Uncharted 3, Deus Ex, Human Revolution. Those are all beautiful. I mean, they listed other games too. I mean, those are some of like the best looking games of that year, and those games all look incredible. Portal 2 compared to those, like it doesn't hold a candle to it.
Uncharted 3 is one of the greatest looking games of all time. Uncharted 3 is a real crap game. And anybody who tells you differently doesn't know what they're talking about. However, it has a totally compelling story, and it looks gorgeous. I mean, it is just a sight to behold. If you haven't played Uncharted 3, I could play a little bit of it, I guess. Or watch a YouTube video so you don't have to play it.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. I borrowed your copy of Deus Ex. How much of that did you play?
Half.
All right. That game had pretty good world building and pretty good graphics. Like, it looked good. It looked like a world.
I definitely think Portal 2 does not stand up to most of those games you mentioned.
No, definitely not. I would agree. I think one of the other observations just sort of related to the I think where that engine kind of falls short. I think you're spot on with it does polygons well, but not other stuff. But related to that is everything in Portal 2 feels really flat, like surfaces and textures. Like there's I just got the impression of like I'm in a big empty room and there's no texture. I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it, but like there's not enough detail in the surface. And I guess sometimes I felt like I wanted that.
Agreed.
As opposed to feeling like it's a skinned polygon. So, our next topic. World building.
World building.
What do you think about Portal 2's world building?
Strictly speaking, cooperatively.
You could do both if you want
I mean,
to.
I already sort of stated that I thought the single player is the pinnacle of world building.
Okay.
There are very few games that I think create a space that feels like it was occupied by real people. As far as the multiplayer goes, though, not great. I think you need that human contrast and those outside of the test chamber moments to really appreciate the world building of Portal. Whereas in the cooperative, there's very little outside test chamber stuff. There's like 4 or 5 brief levels.
And like when you're putting those CDs into the machines, like I often sometimes don't even realize I've gone into a lab. Like the transition is so smooth, which I don't think it should be. I think it should be like stark from a test chamber to outside a test chamber. One of the things that we talked about when we were filling this out was so the concept of a game, and this is where world building becomes really important for making you, or for sort of tricking you into thinking this is an actual world and not a level that's been designed by a guy at a desk somewhere. And some of the games we've played before, they feel very video gamey. They feel like a level. And this is kind of a unique situation.
Right.
Because it's a game. It's kind of like a game within a game.
Yeah, it's really sort of genius.
Yeah.
And it sort of skirts that whole I have to make this feel natural thing.
Because the whole point is like it's testing. It's like it's a game.
Like,
it's like get from point A to point B.
Right. It's really they are presented to you as puzzles to see how smart you are.
Yeah.
So they don't have to try very hard to cover them up as puzzles.
Yep. So that's like a genius, flawless workaround for like you never feel like it's a video game designed by a guy at a studio, because that's the point of the game.
Right.
Like it never feels fake because they work it in so seamlessly and so well into the actual game that it feels central and pivotal to what you're doing. So it never stands out.
Yeah, they do a great job. And I don't know, I wonder how it started, really. I wonder if they were like, look, we can't come up with a plot for this. What do we do? So they sort of just built the game and then built a plot around it, or what? I don't know. But I think it works. And I don't think it could pass in most other games. Like they cornered the market. So anybody else who tries it, it's just going to be a crap Portal ripoff.
They corner the market on science.
Yeah, well, who can blame them?
The single player breaks out of that any hint of video gaminess more by leaving test chambers.
Yeah,
way more often.
Especially, I mean, in Portal 1, it's primarily test chambers, but in Portal 2, I mean, you're out of the test chambers for a large majority of the game.
Yeah. As far as
just let me point out, that's a very interesting thing too. Like when you're outside the test chambers, you have to navigate with the portals not because you're doing tests, but because the building is falling apart. And it's just so interesting to have practical reasons for the portals, to be like, I have to traverse this, but I can't because there's a huge chasm in between.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting and unique, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I like it. As far as the co-op goes, though, my feeling on world building is that it could have been a little more in-depth. The levels are real sterile. Less so in the single player. More so in the co-op. They could have just, I don't know. I guess I would have just appreciated, a broken down test chamber, or, junk in the corner, or, a test, a little bit more progression of some sort, whether deteriorating or whatever. It's just the sterileness of the levels gets kind of boring after a while. I mean, we played for an hour yesterday?
Yeah, and I mean, they all looked identical.
And granted, we were doing the challenge mode. What?
That's what I was going to say.
Oh. We were doing the challenge mode, so, that's something a little bit different, but I don't remember that being any different, really, in the...
Yeah, I don't really recall it being terribly different either.
Mode. Okay. Co-op success. What are your opinions?
This is a weird one. I think that they did the best job that they possibly could.
I agree.
The problems I am going to present now, I don't think there are answers to. So, with that being said, you can't fault them too much. The problem with the cooperative is that more often than not, I feel like it is not cooperative problem solving. It is individual problem solving with another person. I would say maybe 19 out of 20 times Dan and I are playing, one of us figures out the puzzle and then tells the other person what to do. It's never like, let's try this together, or I
didn't get a good sense of teamwork.
Exactly.
And I made the analogy before of like the co-op levels are. It's kind of like doing a crossword puzzle. There's one word that'll fit in a space, and like if you started to figure it out, the pieces are going to start falling into place for you. Faster going to fall into place for me. So at that point, I just kind of I stop thinking and I just wait for you to finish figuring it out.
Right. And sometimes it can get very frustrating because I've figured out the puzzle. I know exactly what we have to do. But I'm trying to describe it to Dan. It's like, no, Dan, you got to put this portal here and then this portal here. No, that's the wrong portal. You got to do it the other way around. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'll do this. You do what I was just doing. And it's just like it can just get frustrating because you can't convey to them in an efficient manner what the answer to the puzzle is, and they just sort of have to trust you. And that's kind of a feel bad moment. Like you're supposed to be doing this together, and instead you're just sort of like following orders.
Yeah, even when we played through it the first time, a couple years ago, I felt at that time I wish that there was like a better sense of teamwork. I mean, I guess it hadn't the cloudiness of that thought hadn't fully realized in my head, but I remember thinking at the time I wish we could work together better at these puzzles. I don't have you're right. I mean, I can't think of a better way to do it, and it works pretty well the way it is. I mean, that's the problem when there's one solution through the level. The only way for there to be another way is if there's multiple ways through a level,
right?
And
which is a bigger fault of the game. There is always one answer. I can't imagine it would be insanely hard to provide a few options in each level. There can still be right and wrong answers. I'm not asking for an open world free for all. Whatever you can do can win the day.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe have it so that you can do things in a different order. There's always an exact course of action that will result in you finishing the puzzle. There is no room for improvisation. You virtually have to do how they designed it.
And when you start to get a little bit more improvisation when you start dealing with the weird liquids. But even then, it's usually you're screwing around for a long time until you actually figure it out, and that was the right way to do it. It just feels like it's improv because you can make a big mess with these liquids everywhere and do funny stuff.
The last issue I have with the cooperative, and Dan and I touched on this briefly, is you have to sort of have the right person to do it with to have the best possible time. Dan and I, we had a good time playing this game. Agreed?
Yeah.
But we have different play styles. And sometimes that can sort of create a conflict in solving of the puzzle. I had another friend who, he and I have the exact same play styles. I mean, if you were listening to our game, it would be annoying because it's just two idiots running around popping portals everywhere. It's like bloop, 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 bloop the entire time. And eventually we just figure it out and we just fly through the levels. So when you're playing the game, it is somewhat important to play it with somebody who has a similar play style to you. Otherwise, it could tarnish the experience slightly.
Yeah, maybe I'm just a slow problem solver. Who knows?
I don't think so. I think it's just people operate differently.
And this isn't me saying that I'm too smart, which is how this might sound, but I have a tendency, and it's not just in this game, I have a tendency to overthink the problems and try and come up with trickier solutions for them than what the game designers intended. And because I go down that path, I make it more difficult for myself, and therefore it makes it harder to solve, and it's not the way to solve it in the first place.
And this is definitely a game that lends itself to that. There have been multiple times where it's like, no, just jump through.
It's like,
oh,
I have an idea. I think it'll work, and it's like, that's dumb. That's dumb, Dan. Why are you doing that? And it's like sometimes like the answer is like staring me right in the face, and I'm just like I'm going down this logical like progression in my head of like, well, if I do this, then that'll happen. Blah blah blah. But it's like, no, you idiot, just jump through the portal and you're done. Okay, Greg.
Dan.
Is it fun?
Yeah.
Yep.
This is one of the most fun games of all time.
It is the funnest.
It's the funnest. There are moments where you're going to be frustrated. I mean, that has to be said. It is a puzzle game.
Yeah.
But when you figure it out and you're like chain flying through the air from like one portal to the next, to the next, to the next, and then you land exactly where you have to be, there is no better feeling in video games. It is a triumph. Like, you just feel awesome.
It is a triumph.
See?
The only way this could have been more fun is if the co-op had Cave Johnson.
Yeah. Where was Cave Johnson at?
And, like, I don't even dock them points for not having it. It just would have been better. They would have gotten, like, bonus points. That would have been super terrific. Do you want to do final score, or do you want to do our who was it recommended for first? What do you want to do?
Do final score.
Okay.
Let's final score this up.
We both chose, for the game overall, for Portal 2, we chose 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. No questions asked.
Cooperative portion of the game, 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
Both of us.
The game could use a little bit more story. The game could use a little more outside-the-box thinking.
It's near perfect.
It's near perfect.
And for modern games, that is difficult to achieve.
Yeah.
Because they're so complex, there's so much going on, it's so easy to annoy a player. And there's so little of that.
I mean, but it just, there has to be said that there's that element where, like, if you're playing this with a significant other, there is that potential
to kill each other,
to have a meltdown.
Yeah. So don't.
Yeah. Somebody's going to inevitably wind up bossing somebody else around, and that never goes well in a relationship.
Yeah. Greg, who would you recommend this game to?
I recommend this game to everybody. This is the game I use as an example of the perfect game. I think this is an excellent game for teaching people how to play games in general. I think it's the perfect game for teaching people how to play first-person shooters. Dan and I talk about all this beforehand. Dan was saying that the first-person shooter elements, like the dual joysticks on a controller, can be overwhelming to new players.
Because I've seen it happen time and time again where they walk straight, they look straight up, and then they spin in a circle. But as Greg pointed out, this is the perfect game to introduce them to that play style because there's nothing attacking them, there's nothing hurting them.
Right.
At least, especially at the beginning of the game. I mean, later on, it's another story.
Portal plays at your speed.
Yep.
There's virtually no pressing matter. It revels in the ability that you can stand in a room, soak it in, figure the pieces out, all of that. If I were introducing games to somebody new and knew that, I mean, at this point you have to learn how to play first-person shooters if you're going to play a game, this is the game to start with because it approaches you on your terms. I will also mention that the Portal games are the games that I use as an example in the debate about whether games have more value than strictly entertainment. The games versus art debate. I think, and you have to get sort of political about these things because everybody has a reason why, it's like, well, what game would you recommend? That game's violent. You have to. A lot of arguments against video games are that they're too violent. There's virtually no violence in Portal.
Yeah, the worst part of Portal 1 is the end when you're fighting a machine.
Yeah.
That's a jerk anyway.
I like to use this game as an example of there's no violence in it, and it is...
Well, technically that's not true. There's the turrets. You can fall into, get hurt. You can get killed. You can drown.
I understand that.
I know that's a stretch. I'm just saying. There's as minimal as you could have, it has it.
But I mean, even in Super Mario, the first thing you do is just stomp out a mushroom.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Like,
it's minimal. It's very, very minimal.
So it's a game that is generally non-conflict based, which is a big knock against most games. And it's a game that increases critical thinking.
Yeah.
There's very little difference to this between doing this and doing brain type games, like SAT type questions. It's puzzle solving. And everybody agrees that puzzle solving keeps you
sharp,
mentally sharp and all of that. These puzzles aren't easy. This game is not easy. I feel like some lesser people could get overwhelmed and frustrated by this.
Well, especially as the game progresses, because you've got all these weird liquids that you got to then contend with that make you bounce or put portal surfaces on things. It's it gets much more complex. But also in that same token of appropriateness, there's no sexual content, there's no inappropriate language. You could have a 5-year-old playing this with their 75-year-old grandparents, and they
right.
both have fun, and it's funny.
And then the last element is that there is a tremendous story in these games.
It's a story of struggle and heart and humanity.
Cave Johnson's a compelling character. Gladys is a compelling character. Wheatley is a compelling character.
You never even see Cave Johnson.
Realistically, the only non-compelling character is yourself.
He's a voice. A disembodied voice.
And it's funny. Comedy in games is so hard to do. You can count on one hand the amount of funny games there are out there.
And generally rare. Probably because it's difficult to do.
It's very difficult to do.
Borderlands, Portal...
Psychonauts.
Okay.
Monkey Island.
But without being a kiddie game,
right?
You don't get it that often.
A lot of things that people use is that comedy is timing based, and that when people are playing things on their own terms, like video games, it's hard to nail those comedic moments at the right time. This game does it in spades. So I can't say enough about this game. I recommend it to everybody. The cooperative is great. I recommend the cooperative to everybody. I just can't say enough good things. Dan, what about you? Who would you recommend this to?
I would also recommend it to everyone. They're just fun. They're just good, fun games, and it's there's an innocence to Portal. Because it doesn't have all that other stuff. It's just it's good, wholesome, good fun.
Yeah.
It's you can't go wrong with Portal.
Absolutely not. It's just so good. The Portal games are the best games of all time.
They're definitely up there.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 or 2, easily within the top 10, I would say. For originality, for fun.
I kind of want to go play Portal 1 now. Although, I will tell you something I do not recommend. If you have played Portal, do not watch somebody else do it.
Yeah, that would be real difficult, a Let's Play of Portal.
It will
with a
ruin you. Watching a new player play Portal after you know the answers, it's like somebody's gnawing at your brain. It's this is so simple. Just put the portal there and walk through it. And they're flipping around and jumping in the water and dying and doing all this. It's stop it. Stop. Just give me the controller.
Yeah. Next question. Would you play the next installment in this series?
I wish I was playing it right now. I hadn't even thought about another Portal until we were filling out this worksheet, and then I got very angry that there was not another Portal right now.
I wish I had already played the next Portal and was now looking forward to Portal 4.
Yeah.
That's what I wish. So we have a couple of like extra little like bonus things here. Video game logic.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's minimal.
I don't know if it totally applies to this. First Portal more than anything.
Yeah.
Video game logic just breaks down to explore where you're not supposed to, and you'll get rewarded for it. There's a little bit of that in these games. In the cooperative, if you go way out of your way and do some really crazy stuff, you can find a companion cube like tucked away in a little corner and stuff. In the single player, if you go out of your way and do some weird stuff, you can find the dock for the ship that they're supposed to be looking for in Half-Life 2 Episode 2, because tying the two franchises together. So it's there. The first game did it better and more often. But it's virtually non-existent in these games.
Do you have any noteworthy game moments with Portal 2 co-op?
No, not really.
I don't really either. The only like I will say, and this isn't exclusive to this one or the co-op, but when you're going through two portals to like build up speed and you hit like maximum velocity, it's so much fun. Like your brain sort of like as you're watching it unfold on the screen, your brain sort of shuts down because it's like you're going so fast and things are changing so quickly. Like it's kind of hard to comprehend what's happening. It's really enjoyable.
The game is also sort of designed around those moments too. Like when we come up with this question, what we're really saying is like, do you have any moments where you just feel totally rad? That just stand out, and
yeah,
that you're like, that was a great moment.
Like when I knifed 3 guys in Battlefield 4.
Right. The game is designed around that, like sort of ebb and flow, like the ups and downs of it. You start in a room and you're at a 0, and then by the time you fly to that ledge way, 100 feet in the air, you're at that 10. So like every single room is designed around that special video game moment. It's the purpose of the game. So there aren't a lot of like individual moments in there. Every single test chamber, you have that aha moment where you're like, this is awesome. So,
or like when you're flying across a map towards the exit for that level, and you're like, yes, I did it.
So it's there, but it's different.
All right, we've covered a lot here, Greg.
Yeah.
Final thoughts.
Play Portal. How have you not played Portal by now?
Seriously, guys, if you're listening to this and not playing Portal,
you should be playing Portal while listening.
If you've never played Portal and you have a computer, go get Steam and go get it now.
Yeah.
If you have, go down. Can you download it? You can probably download it.
You can do whatever you want with Portal.
I mean, like on the Xbox.
You can get it from Steam. You can get the original Portal download. It's like an extended version called Still Alive.
Right.
I don't know if you can get Portal 2 downloadable.
I don't know either.
Do it. Find it.
Do it. Gotta play Portal, guys. Great game.
Just absolute final thought. Still Alive, the Jonathan Colton song at the end of Portal 1. That's one of the greatest moments in video game history. Like when the credits start up and that song comes on, and you're like, oh, what's this little ditty? And you figure out how funny it is, and it's just
this beautiful, wonderful, silly, funny song.
It's just perfect.
Yep.
I think Portal 2 is a better game than Portal 1. I think it's this point is going to sound stupid, but I think it's still there. I think Portal 2 is a better game than Portal 1. I think Portal 1 is a perfect game.
Well, because Portal 1 came first. It gets credit for that. You wouldn't have Portal 2 without Portal 1. It's the building block. It matters.
Play Portal, guys. I'm going to put that Jonathan Colton song here.
That's probably a good place for it.
I am killagreg. You can find me at killagreg17.
I am Dan. You can find me at the Polygon1.
You can find us at Player2, PLAYRTWO.
And you can find us at www.player2pressstart.com.
Keep those emails coming in. Next week we're doing something real different. We were having a conversation earlier about just video game reviews and stuff like that in general, and we kind of decided that it would be important to take a minute and express sort of where we're coming from as, video game critics and players and stuff like that.
And we certainly touched on some of these things over the course of, the last 14 or 15 episodes.
Right.
But I think to just clearly state what our preferences are what we look for in a game, what works for us, what doesn't work, and then articulate that and sort of discuss it. And
right, and just sort of have a general discussion about video game theory and stuff like that.
And this idea of doing that episode for next time came up for the concept of value in a game. And Greg was asking me do you consider price when you buy a game? And my first thought was, well, no. But the more we talked about it, the more I do. And the value you get out of a game really depends on what you are looking for from the game, and not everybody's looking for the same thing.
Right. So that's going to be next week. After that, we have 2 real doozy episodes coming up, just a whole bunch of games.
But we'll save that for next time.
So
we'll keep that under our hat for now.
Stay tuned. And you know what? If you have a pretty defined version of why you like video games or what you like in games, give us a shout, and maybe we'll do some reader insight.
Just to mention those again, it's Dan at player2pressstart.com or killagreg at player2pressstart.com. You can send us emails.
Thanks for listening. Go play Portal.
Play Portal.
This was a triumph. I'm making a note here, huge success. It's hard to overstate my satisfaction. Aperture science. We do what we must because we can. For the good of all of us, except the ones who are dead. But there's no sense crying over every mistake. You just keep on trying till you run out of cake. And the science gets done, and you make a neat gun for the people who are still alive. I'm not even angry. I'm being so sincere right now. Even though you broke my heart and killed me, I'm torn into pieces, and threw every piece into a fire. As they burned, it hurt because I was so happy for you. Now these points of data make a beautiful line, and we're out of data, we're releasing on time. So I'm glad I got burned. Think of all the things we learned for the people who are still alive. Go ahead and leave me. I think I prefer to stay inside. Maybe you'll find someone else to help you. Maybe Black Mesa.